I would prefer Blake though.
Yeah.
Ryden is like tainted.
Oh, yeah. I mean, once you pull on that black and yellow shirt, like
You're dead to
you're
me.
dead to me. Yeah, exactly. Like how many, Tottenham to Arsenal like transfers have there been?
No, yeah. Gross.
Everton to Liverpool. Like aside from Rafa Benitez.
Right, just that coach that no one knows about.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC, a proud member of the Beautiful Game Network, and brought to you by Roughneck Scarves and Icarus FC. I'm your host, Phil Bakke. Tonight, I am joined by my co-host, Mikka Burrell. Mikka, we're back.
We're back. How you doing?
Pretty good. Big win, obviously. Last night, little bit of an intense night though. All things considered, obviously hearing last week's news about an eighth notcher, a friend of the pod, Rico, who tragically passed away last Friday. It had a big impact on last night and on the community surrounding this team.
Yeah, very emotional night for sure. As you said, Rico having passed away on Friday, and seeing the news was shocking. Because I mean, he was at the game on Wednesday.
He was.
Just goes to show you that there's just never enough time, and to not take things for granted because you don't know what the next day brings. Not to be cliche, but this situation's kind of highlighted that. Rico was such a nice guy, such an interesting guy to talk to. Interesting backstory. Got to know him a little bit. And his wife, Lorenza, is absolutely just salt of the earth, like one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Total sweetheart.
Both of them just amazing people. And Rico's, iconic, really, around the SWUP. Everyone knows the blue beard and the, the blue and yellow wigs. And he was just the ultimate Locomotive supporter. So yeah, bittersweet. I'm glad the guys were able to put in a really nice performance to honor him. And there was a lot of tributes to him in the 8th minute and the 88th minute from the 8th notch, and the rest of the stadium as well. It was really touching to see. And yeah, I'm just sending all my love to Lorenza and the family.
Yeah, likewise. All our deepest condolences. It was absolutely shocking news to hear. Rico and Lorenza would come up, quite often at events and stuff that we would be at and just comment on how much they enjoyed listening to the podcast and everything and those sorts of connections. It's just been crazy to see, obviously, the tributes over the last few days. And last night it was amazing to see the club, but not just in a superficial way of, like we send our condolences, but in a practical way and in a very meaningful way. The players were wearing black armbands during the game in honor of Rico, and we'll get on to the goal itself later. But Andrew Fox honoring Rico in his celebration of the opener as well. This, like, to me, more than anything, just like highlights that, for all of the things that we normally talk about around this, like Locomotive and Eighth Notch and the supporters around the club and even the players and staff have truly like turned this organization into a family. Yeah,
absolutely. This is more than just a local club. I mean, it's really become something bigger than itself almost. The community is so important. We've had so many intense things happen in our short history as a club, with, we just passed the 2-year anniversary of August 3rd.
Yeah.
And that was an emotional night when we played that game.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that night, but
a couple weeks later, I think.
A couple weeks later, yeah, and so that was an event that unfortunately things like that bring you together, which is just natural, I suppose. But yeah, then of course the fans just have become so close over those kind of things, and now with the death of one of our own, it's just, man, I don't know. I think the only thing that can happen right now or that can happen in the future is it'll just bring us closer as a community, as a club, as a family, and I think that's what Rico would have wanted.
Yeah, and I do hope that that his family and his loved ones feel the support and feel the love right now, because I know that they're hurting bad, and so yeah, hopefully they feel embraced and by the community, and I know that we're just sending all of our love to them at this moment, which is just extremely tough. And in light of that, it seems almost weird to talk about soccer in the light of something so tragic and something so serious and personal. But this is part of why we have these things. Like, they do distract and are a little bit of an escape. In this moment, though, Locomotive getting the win over Austin Bold, it felt like you said, it had kind of a personal and intense feeling around this win, because of the players were also honoring Rico with this performance.
Yeah, it's a performance he would have been proud of, and that I think honored him in the best way. I mean, a 3-0 smashing of an interstate rival, and a Couple Tejas rival. So really, what more can you ask for? Especially, the guys showed so much heart, because this was their 5th game in 14, 15 days. I mean, that's a brutal stretch, no matter how you slice it. And the guys just showed so much heart, so much composure to get through the game and to put in a good performance. I mean, it wasn't always smooth sailing, from the jump. I think actually we were a little bit outplayed at times, but to turn the tide and beat them 3-0, beat a good opponent, to be fair.
Yeah.
In Marcelo Serrano's Austin Bold, to do that at the tail end of this really brutal stretch is amazing. At home in front of the fans, just so much good to talk about with this one.
Yeah, this is an Austin Bold side that hadn't allowed a whole ton of goals recently until a recent performance against San Antonio, but they had been pretty staunch defensively, and indeed Panico, their keeper, came into this one leading the league in clean sheets with 6. This performance from Locomotive, obviously goal heavy for what we're used to, and ultimately dominant in the end. But it started out with the announcement of a lineup that we've seen throughout this stretch and this intense period, that Mark is willing to rotate. He's willing to manage minutes. He's not going to trot the same 11 players out there. And he's going to make sure that guys are getting rotated and stay fresh. The thing that stuck out, and it stuck out to a lot of people, including Patrick Abildon, who asked the question about Yuma being back in midfield, which was something we hadn't seen. We've seen him at center back quite heavily recently, and indeed Yuma was back at the 6 in place of Richie Ryan. Andrew Fox took his place at center back. So Patrick asked, tactical advantage of Yuma at the 6.
Yeah, Yuma, he subbed in for Richie. Basically, it was just a like-for-like change on the night. Richie needed the rest. It was really interesting to see him back there. It seems like he's been a center back for like a year now or more, maybe.
Yeah.
So lots of advantages to him being in the 6. I mean, one, I think he's a bit more mobile than Richie in that position. I think he sweeps up a bit more. He goes forward when the opportunity presents itself, so it's a little less predictable, I guess, from ostensibly a holding midfielder. And then as well, he drops back too and kind of creates like a 3 and splits the splits the center backs to where he can also create from the back, while still, being a six on paper. So, I thought it was really interesting to see him back there. I think it was about managing Richie's minutes, but we know he can do that job, and I think he escapes without having gotten a card, because that was my main concern about seeing him there is we've seen him take some cards in the past in that position when he's got people running past him to contend with. But I think he did all right on the night. So yeah, there were a lot of advantages to it. I think it gave us a different dynamic that we hadn't seen in quite a while.
Yeah, I think his willingness to step up a little bit does give us a little bit different dynamic, and there were a handful of times, especially in the first half, that I was noticing where he was stepping into space and winning the ball back like quite high up the field. So that in and of itself is, going to create some advantages. And I know Richie does a good job of that as well, but I think Yuma was just very active in that role, moving around a lot. And in the end, like, as you said, no bookings and no real big like moments of controversy from Yuma or anything, and not too many moments that I can think of where he was particularly put under pressure in that number 6 position. So overall, sees it out really well. We know he's composed on the ball. Like, that's never been a question of Yuma. So when he's turning under pressure or trying to find an outlet pass, like, we know that he often finds it. So yeah, this game, I think maybe for him too, a little bit of just a pressure valve of like, hey, you're not the last line of defense in this one. You can kind of play a little bit freer. Not a normal vibe for starting a central defensive midfielder, but Yuma almost getting a break, having Foxy back there.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, just half joking, half serious, I think Yuma was enjoying his time closer to the center referee.
Yeah.
Because he was still chatting with him quite a bit. So, the Yuma of old in that way, I suppose.
The other story there being that Andrew Fox does make his return to the starting lineup. We had seen him in fits and spurts at left back. I think he maybe started a couple of games ago at left back for Eder Borelli to manage his minutes. He gets to start at center back this time around, and Foxy obviously caps the performance with a goal. But Fox, we talked about at the end of season 1, as, hey, maybe his best position is actually at center back. And he turns in another pretty confident and calm performance in this one.
Oh, I love seeing Foxy back in the lineup. I think everyone on the podcast knows that I rate him very highly. I think center back probably is the best position for him, because I think we get to make use of his height and his relative size. And in our system, he's still able to play the ball quite a bit, which we know he's good at as well. And yeah, it was great to see him, go the distance in this one. I think he came on. No, he started last time, but, minutes were managed, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And he did look a little bit rusty, but I think that was to be expected given the long layoff with the injury. But he looks fit and firing, and he did fire indeed. And we'll get on to that, but I just love seeing him in the lineup, and I think it gives Mark more to think about, because we've been running with Yuma and Mishak for the whole season, essentially.
Yeah.
And, players in that position have come and gone without playing, Nalog, Matt Lewis. So it's nice to have another option.
Matt Lewis, former Locomotive player, scored for Detroit City FC in their NISA opener as well. So I know everybody's watching with interest, the former Locomotive player.
Legend.
Yeah.
Club legend.
Yeah.
Matt Lewis.
Elsewhere in this lineup, Seb Velasquez and Josue Aron Gomez come in, give Diego Luna and Dylan Maris some relief up front. And Seb in particular, these last few games, has really come on and really gotten back into like the form that we're used to, I would say, as far as like when he, his form, like when he departed the club the first time.
Yeah, I think it would have been really questionable to drop him after what he did on Wednesday night. And he has another good outing this time. And, Gomez for me is always one that should start because he leads the club in scoring. So he's always a threat. Luna, everyone knows he's 17 years old. He's going to need breaks here and there so he doesn't get too jaded. And Mars as well. But, they both come on and make a great impact. And I think that's been really the interesting thing about this brutal run is the subs have been spot on. So
yeah, the subs have been spot on, and like the bench just has a different feel than it used to for Locomotive, where now that we have just a healthy core, it just feels like when you're able to bring, like in this game in particular, Velasquez and Gomez, creating chances up front, creating space for themselves. Chapa was getting in on the act, on the attack. Like we were kind of all over Bold in terms of chance creation. Like we were the ones definitely on the front foot. And then at 1-0, being able to bring on, like you're just getting run ragged, pulled all over the place, Austin Bold. And then Dylan Maris and Diego Luna come off the bench. Like, yeah, it very much felt like I feel as a rival fan watching, like, and I'm not saying that we're at this level as a club. Obviously, we got a long way to go, but like playing against like a Manchester City.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Where you're just
when they like bring on like Riyad Mahrez and you're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, they're just throwing haymakers and then they're bringing on a world-class player. And for us to bring on like two bona fide, like, brilliant USL attacking midfielders, up a goal later on in the game, fresh legs like from Dylan and Diego. That's the sort of thing that I think has raised the level of this club. And what we've seen in the past is they would really struggle with a run like this across this many games in a short period of time. We've come out of it the other side largely because with 13 out of 15 possible points in this stretch, largely because we've been able to have people make an impact off the bench.
Yeah, those are elite numbers and elite performances in such a tight schedule. And yeah, the depth is incredible. I mean, I would like to say shout out to Mark's staff because that's got to be tough trying to manage the minutes of all these players, but knowing you need to get results, and they've managed this period expertly.
One of the things that might have previously, like we would have pointed to as a big negative, is Brian Rebillon picks up a undeserved, we'll say, like red card towards the end of the win against. Holy crap, who did we play?
San Antonio?
Yeah, San Antonio. Wow. Anyways, so...
You're forgiven. It's been crazy.
So, yeah, Brian gets sent off, so he's suspended for this one. It's something that we probably would have pointed to in the past of saying, like, Brian wasn't available for this one. Tough night, that sort of thing. Chapa starts in his absence, and Chapa made everybody quickly not forget about Brian by any stretch, but certainly Chapa was making us feel a little bit more comfortable about him being out.
Chapa's been great when he's played this season. It's just incredible to see the evolution of this player because when he joined the club, and he's one of that original core, and of course an El Paso boy, he was pretty raw. Like the work rate and the intensity and the kind of like blue collar play style has always been there, but now he's adding technique and match intelligence. And not that he didn't have it before, but it's just he's more refined as a player now, if that makes sense, while still giving us that workman-like performance that we're looking for from him. So yeah, I mean, and unfortunately for Chapa, though, he does get battered just as much as Brian does, if not more. So he has inherited that as well, unfortunately for Chapa. But I think he can take it.
Yeah, he was. And in this one, he was doing all of the things that we've seen him do in recent matches. Like, just he's such an outlet because he's very press resistant. Like, he doesn't give the ball away very much, and he actually, when he's getting pressed, he wins like quite a few fouls. In this one,
He's
it wasn't
very good at shielding the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's tough to get the ball off him. And, you know, I think he was targeted much more against New Mexico United in that first half in Albuquerque, in terms of like them keying the press, like off of, hey, Chapa gets the ball and we're going to close him down. And Chapa just didn't allow them to get the ball off him, you know, for that entire first half. But the additional like aspect of this is that in this one, Austin they decided not to press. Like, they decided to really bank on playing on the counter. They sat like quite deep. They gave our midfielders time to turn in midfield. So since Chapa wasn't being pressed, Chapa was actually popping up like in attacking areas and like contributing to the attack. It didn't like bear fruit in this particular instance, but he was popping up in some really good areas. And on a different night where the goalkeeper didn't stand on his head for the entire first half, Chapa might actually have come away with a goal or two.
Yeah. I think the vibe in the stadium was like, is this finally happening where like our luck's run out goal scoring wise and we're gonna just struggle, because Panico was making quite a few stops. I mean, some were of his own making, some situations he kind of bungled on his own, but otherwise, I mean, he was doing quite well with what we were giving to him. And yeah, Chapa found himself in some areas of the pitch that you might not expect, but that were welcome nonetheless. But yeah, Austin Bold's strategy was fascinating, because I thought that they were really quite good when they would get on the ball. They were, you know, smashing the ball into feet, very vertical, you know, trying to go straight to goal. But when they would lose it, 11, 10 men behind the ball, like no trying to press it and keep the ball in any dangerous areas. They were just dropping back really, really deep. And it was kind of like, I don't know, I guess that's like a road tactic. I've seen us do it sometimes, but maybe not to that extent though.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that we saw like the best of what Bold can offer, because I was a little bit surprised that they weren't trying to go toe to toe with us in midfield. But yeah, it ends up not bearing fruit for them, as he said.
I like it. Far be it from me to question Marcelo Serrano. Like, he's an extremely experienced manager, qualifications like out the wazoo. But the thing that just really was blowing my mind, and I know I brought it up, you know, last night, as you said, like, when they were on the ball, Bold looked very good, and they were very incisive especially when they got the ball out wide. Like, Wayne Gordon was like going crazy at times when he would get the ball at his feet, and but they refused to press, and then because they weren't pressing and they were dropping so deep, they don't defend particularly well. Like, I think their record defensively probably speaks more to how much time they spend like on the front foot in some of these games, because when they're in possession, they're really good, but they didn't defend that well. And without Panico, like, this game is over before halftime. And to allow guys like Nick Ross, Sebastian Velasquez, even Yuma to an extent, to be able to like quarterback and just like have time and space. We saw it on the pass that nearly led to, Chapa's first chance, which was Panico's first like save of the game. Nick Ross makes an unbelievable flat pass through the midfield that cuts through two lines and puts Chapa like essentially one-on-one with the keeper, despite the fact that Bold have 10 men behind the ball. He takes everybody out of the game with one pass, which to me just like told the story of the whole night, which was that Bold came with a plan to sit deep and frustrate us, but I don't think they actually have the personnel to do that. Like, I think they had a team that should have been out there trying to just put us under pressure, like win the ball high up the field, get the ball at the feet of Gordon, let him run at Borelli, like let him run at somebody. And I mean, I was relieved that they weren't doing it more often, because it just seemed like it was the way to go. And instead they were content to let us have the ball for large periods. And I think they hoped to hit us on the counter. They almost did a couple of times, in fairness, but it just, the game plan for me was oddly a miss, from a guy as experienced as, Marcelo Serrano.
Right. And, I think also one thing we'll have to be fair to Bold, that we'd have to acknowledge is that they just like 3 days ago moved on Sean Nicoli to Orange County, which I don't know what that says about Bold's ambitions this season or the state of the club. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think he was their leading scorer. So that's never great. And I think on the times that you did see them try to get up the pitch, it was very clear that there was not a focal point in attack for them. It just seemed like they would get into good positions out wide and not really know what to do with it. And before they could decide, we'd already gotten the ball back. So, yeah, I have to agree. It was a miss tactically. And I take your point, too, that perhaps they don't have the personnel to really play like that. At least not against us. At least not against teams like RGV.
Right.
Phoenix, if they were facing them this season, teams like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just the idea of not putting somebody out there to pressure Nick Ross or like close down Velasquez, if he's comfortably turning like 30 yards from goal, then there's like,
you will have a bad time.
Yeah, you're going to struggle. And they were turning for free. And a handful of times, obviously, like the skill of those guys comes through, and the Nick Ross pass like stands out in my mind in terms of no one necessarily expects someone to be able to pull that off.
Well, because any other game, that's a hospital pass. Like, that's a pass that gets you subbed off. But he has, you know what I'm saying? But he has this. When do you ever see a pass played right up the gut like that?
Yeah.
And that's why it was so, like, surprising.
Yeah.
Because, against a competent team, that gets you, like, subbed off.
Absolute seeing eye pass. And it was unbelievable. Like, and it deserved a goal at the end of it. Unfortunately, a good save by Panico, who... obviously sporting the helmet that had become like synonymous with Petr Cech.
Yes.
you had given him a little bit of a nickname in our group chat.
Oh, Dripping Springs Petr Cech.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's all in good fun though.
Yeah, Panico. I mean, in fairness, I think it's funny when keepers have these names that suggest like that they could be bad, like Golini for Atalanta, and now a guy literally named Panic. Like
that's not Panico, and also it sounds like Panenka.
Ooh,
Panic. That's awesome.
But he performed well, but in the second half, we go in 0-0, but as Eric Bauer pointed out on Twitter at ebow27, said, can we talk about the quality of the goals last night? Fantastic move by Fox to get free and finish with that solid header. Amazing free kick by Mahrez and a world-class finish by Carrillo. What a special team we have. I mean, he rounds them all up there, but let's start with the opener. The header from Andrew Fox. This was an area that he was actually getting into in the first half on free kicks and corners, but the referee kept blowing for really soft fouls in the first half, and it almost felt like he ghosts in there because Bold had been lulled to sleep by these like these like false start set pieces, and he's absolutely unmarked and makes no mistake.
Yeah, nobody follows him. Nobody tracks him. It's really poor defending, to be fair. But talking on the Locomotive side of things, just the technique for this header is incredible. I mean, it's just textbook. It's exactly what you want from, your tall center half in the box. Fox in the box, as they say.
Yep.
Great delivery from Nick Ross as well. I'm glad that his contribution shows on paper for this one, because I thought he had another really good game that, sometimes you don't see it in the numbers, but I'm glad he gets the assist on this. Very good corner. I think I've said this on the pod before, and it's just a request to any Locomotive employees who might be listening. Can we loosen the nets? Because sometimes we score these bangers that I'm not sure if they're goals, because I can't tell because the net doesn't move. It's like wound so tightly.
Yeah.
Because this one hits the side netting and it like immediately bounces back out. I'm like, wait, did it hit the post? Did it go in? What? Like, I was relying on the crowd. And to be fair, my vantage point isn't great from the dugout, but it just the perfect header. And then the celebration just ripped my heart out, man. The beard celebration, the pounding of the badge, like this guy's Locomotive through and through. And I'm just so thrilled that he's a part of our squad, because it's clear that his connection with the fans is not just surface level.
Yeah. No, that moment, and to come from him as well after this long injury layoff, he hasn't been able to be involved with the team for quite a long time in a serious way. And so for him to score an important goal that breaks a deadlock, and on a night that had so much emotion around it already, where he's able to be the one who makes that tribute to a fan, and someone so connected to the club, and that he does it instinctually. Like, it's not something he had to be reminded of. It's not something that was choreographed. Like, it was clear that it just came to him, like, in that moment, that was what he was going to do. Right. And there's just something so special about the connection between these players and in particular, the guys who have been around since season one. Like, they've gone through an evolution personally, but they've kind of overseen this evolution of the team into something, where we've come quite a long way from some of the those season one, like, different struggles, stumbles, whatever you want to call them. Like, this is an extremely good team now. And so for him to be a part of that journey and to kind of start this one off it just felt so fitting, for it to be a guy like him to be the one to score this goal. And he makes no mistake. I'm certain he would have been extremely disappointed if he doesn't deposit this one in the back of the net. But it can be easy to kind of get in your own head, 8 yards out, free header. Like, could be easy to kind of lose focus there.
Yeah. I mean, he hits that like it's training. I mean, it looks very instinctive and natural, but the technique is so good. I think the goal was emotional for Andrew Fox too. I mean, when he celebrates, he also kind of like looks to the heavens, like, finally. Yeah. Having struggled so much with injury, because it was our understanding that he would get better and then the injury would just aggravate again, and this cycle. Yeah. And for a an elite footballer like that, it's I was gonna say annoying, but that doesn't even really capture it. I mean, it's probably low-key traumatizing, not to be able to do the thing that you love more than anything in the world, which is play football. So I'm sure it was emotional for him too. It certainly seemed to be the case from his celebration. Yeah,
he just, that outpouring of emotion, and again, like, captured so well by Kenzie, who's gaining quite the reputation for the videos post goal, and did another stellar job on this celebration as well, after the goal. The second, we have this moment after the opener where right about the hour mark, Mark decides to make a couple of changes. I think he makes 3 changes actually in total, because he brings on Richie Ryan. But then he also, which ends up managing Borelli's minutes, of all people, because Fox actually gets pushed out to left back. And so we get Adair a little bit of a break. But we see the double introduction, as we were talking about, of Dylan and Diego. and both of them have an impact on the 2 goals. And Dylan, first and foremost, when this man's over a free kick, no one is safe.
The dead ball specialist strikes again. Yeah, I mean there's a foul outside the area. Dangerous position for Dylan Mars to be in with the the skills that he has from these situations. And I thought when he took it and it ends up in the far post again, which by the way all of our goals were on that side.
Yeah.
Goal, which I thought was interesting. But I thought at first someone had gotten a touch on it in the box, but you clearly see from the goal cam that it's straight in and totally catches Panico out. He's not able to react in time. I think he might have been a little bit unsighted. But yeah, I mean, Dylan Mars just doing what Dylan Mars does off the bench, and you'd love to see it.
Yeah, this was one where it felt like if someone gets a touch, it's a goal. And if no one gets a touch, it's also a goal. Like it was just like it was inevitable.
Yeah,
it did look
placement.
Yeah, it did look initially. I thought I can't remember who was coming in at the far post, but I thought it took a touch off a foot initially. Someone gets their foot up, and in the end, yeah, it goes straight through. And it was funny because initially the camera went to Matt Boehner. And I thought, no way has Matt Boehner just scored as well, just defender's delight. But no, it was Dylan able to claim that one going straight through. And his delivery on free kicks is just so good. And I don't know that he necessarily, I don't want to take credit away from him, obviously. I don't know that he necessarily means to score, like based on the style of the delivery. Like I do think he's flighting that in.
Yeah.
But typically, like, as I said, either way, it's at least a shot on target. So his, that delivery was, I thought all it needed was a touch. It turned out it didn't even need that.
Yeah. I think he's probably aiming for one of his teammates. But hey, I will take it.
Oh, for sure. All day. The final goal, though, comes late in the game. Leandro Carrillo has gotten used to these like late contributions at Southwest University Park. And we were talking a little bit about how Leandro sometimes, like, he takes a free kick in this one, kind of balloons it over the bar, and we're thinking like, hey, Dylan should probably take that. And you said, maybe it was Christian. I think it was Christian who said this man is nothing if not ballsy. And
I mean, yeah.
And his finish on that final goal is like the finish of a confident striker who knows exactly where the goal is, and that this like instinctive first time curled finish is like the level of difficulty is off the charts, and yet Leandro makes it look extremely easy, as if he's done it 1,000 times, which by this point in his career, he probably has.
Oh my God. This is the pick of the bunch for me, which is difficult to choose because all these goals are amazing. But this one is by far, I think, the most difficult.
Yeah.
The technique is what you expect from a Brazilian, let's be fair. But the build up to it is really, really good too. Diego Luna, who had come on as well with Mares, is doing what he does, dribbling through many players. He flicks it to Carrillo at first, who chests it down back into his path, and then Luna finds him again at an angle that's really, like, I would love to see the XG on that, because I don't know that it can be really that much given the angle. It's very difficult, but Leandro opens his body up and just curls it again, far post into Panico's net. And first time too, nice and low. I mean, just a beautiful goal. Yeah. And I love Duke Keith's call on it too, because it was just a banger. I mean, I thought this was the pick of the bunch, honestly.
It's so good. And as you said, like, the link up with Diego is top class. them linking up, having not, I don't think they've gotten like too many significant minutes like on the field together. I'm sure in training, you know, they get quite a bit, but the link up was fantastic. And it got me thinking when they scored the goal, because Leandro, obviously super experienced striker, getting on in years. Diego, hotshot, you know, youngster coming up. And so it got me thinking, like, what is the biggest age disparity like ever to combine for a goal? I couldn't find the like hard stats here, but the age difference between Diego and Leandro is 18 years, which is literally like Leandro is more than twice as old than Diego. Like he's twice his age. He's over twice his age.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm sure he would hate that we're pointing that out, but
yeah, I'm sure he wouldn't be super pleased. But the closest I could find, like even Ryan Giggs, who is the third oldest goal scorer in Premier League history, he scored when he was 39. But he was assisted by a 27-year-old Wayne Rooney. So that was still only a 12-year difference, like between those two.
You know what we would probably need to look at is who from like Real Betis's academy has combined with Joaquin. That would probably give us the answer.
That's a good call. Yeah, Joaquin is probably the man to target.
He's like 40, right? Like genuinely.
So, but yeah, so it was kind of cool because it was this like intergenerational goal. But Diego with the deserved assist, and Leandro just like that finish just oozes class. Like that is up there with, you know, I think those type of like narrow angle curled finishes are associated with some of like the best strikers like in history. So it just like brings back like Samuel Eto'o or Thierry Henry, like those wide, those strikers who would drift wide, like to be able to finish first time like that is no easy feat. And yeah, that goal was just absolutely brilliant and capped off a brilliant night for Locomotive as well, who now find themselves further atop the USL Western Conference Mountain Division. Now, I guess a full 8 points clear at the top, and with a game in hand still over RGV. And indeed, the most points of any team in USL, more than Phoenix, more than Louisville City, and more than Pittsburgh. And actually, over those Eastern Conference teams, Locomotive also have a game in hand. So as it stands, like the most points of any team in USL, and like it's basically Locomotive and Phoenix right now who are actually in a race for like most points in the league.
Yeah, 37 points, I think, and Phoenix dropped points to Las Vegas Lights last night, which is shocking. I think it ended 2-2. And so they're on 36 points. So, I mean, by the numbers, we are the best team in the league right now. Most clean sheets as well. So congratulations, Logan, for that.
Yeah.
And Ben and Adrian, because whoever plays there has a fucking clean sheet. And best goals against, I think, in the league as well. So, I mean, the defense has never been one that we really question, but now we're scoring multiple goals, and it's just like, blessed. #blessed.
Seriously. And I mean, for a defense that's been lauded over the years, 10 goals allowed in 16 matches is sort of absurd.
Mark's taking this like Atletico Madrid thing to the next level. It's incredible. Yeah.
Long may it continue. Well, we've got New Mexico United next, so we'll take a quick break and then we'll be back to preview the match against New Mexico United. The one thing I wanted to shout out about this match was Armada Cthulhu, who made the trip from Jacksonville. Watch the match last night with Eighth Notch in 105, and then after the match, got a picture with his Jacksonville Armada flag with Meshach Jerome, Richie Ryan, Matt Boehner, and Brian Rebillon, all former Armada players. Obviously, like formerly managed by the boss, Mark Lowry. So that in and of itself was really cool. And it was, I think, about a day separated from Mark's 5th year anniversary of being appointed as Armada's manager in the wake of Tony Meola being sacked.
Right. As Charles pointed out to us on Twitter, that fun little bit of trivia. Anything Jacksonville Armada, I feel, I don't know, like it feels like kindred spirits. Like they're like our, I don't know, we're like I don't know. This, I don't want it to sound patronizing, but it's like, maybe we're like the natural continuation of them while they're not, playing kind of thing. Carrying on Mark's tactics, Mark's philosophy with Locomotive. So I always feel some kind of like gratitude to Armada, if that makes any sense. So that was really cool to see one of their own make the trip. I mean, that's a Mark Lowry Ultra right there.
Absolutely. And that, I think that is another aspect of like what we were talking about at the top of the show, is just there is like some history being built here, and it actually is like we do owe a debt of gratitude, a gret of datitude to Jacksonville Armada, because one, like, I mean, I said on Twitter, like, we had no idea, obviously, in El Paso, what sort of impact Mark Lowry being appointed the manager would have been in 2016. 2016 in Jacksonville, he's appointed, and it ends up having this, butterfly effect to fast forward, and we have the best team in the Western Conference and the best team in USL, on paper right now. And a handful of guys who, were playing for Armada in the NASL days in a time where stuff was super unstable, and there was all these like questions about whether, the stability of the league and like the viability of some of these teams. So the fact that they were like out there in the wilderness, like providing these guys a platform and being able to like give a guy like Mark Lowry a shot at managing, give these players like Meshach and Richie and Brian, who have become like such fixtures around our club, like giving them a place to ply their trade. Who knows if like some of them even hang around the sport if they don't have this opportunity with Jacksonville, like, if that league didn't exist at that time and there were less opportunities for players, like who's to say that they would have even like continued playing, or it would have been possible for them to continue playing. So, I just have such gratitude for those guys and guys like Cthulhu and like Charles, who kind of carry on and like keep this history of Armada alive, because this is significant to our history as a club as well. So I totally get what you're saying from like, we're kind of carrying on. It's like they helped like kickstart, and we are now, bearing the history of some of these players and managers, and in this case, like Mark Lowry, who got their shot with them. So it is like, I do feel that connection, and it was so cool to see it in like a practical way by someone making the trip all the way out to El Paso to watch a game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, don't want to sound patronizing, but we do feel like the like continuation of Jacksonville Armada's legacy. I mean, they also are known as the Boys in Blue. Their supporters let off blue and yellow smoke. Even the badges are somewhat similar. The core of our very first Locomotive team even had more Armada players than we do now. Josh Castellanos, Derek Gebhardt. Yep. So yeah, I mean, we're carrying on that legacy, and I'm honestly proud of it. I own an Armada shirt. Like, I try to support them because I'm grateful to kind of the foundation that they unknowingly, I guess, laid for El Paso Locomotive.
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. We've got New Mexico United coming up, Mikka. It's another Derby day. It's in Albuquerque. returning to the site of the only dropped points from this 5-game stretch that we were on these last couple of weeks. A 0-0 draw up there at the Lab, which, I mean, we talked at the time, I think, in the episode about it being a missed opportunity. Obviously, there was the sending off. Guzman sent off in that one. And the man advantage from Locomotive. But in the context of this 5-game run, pretty decent result to get that 0-0.
Yeah, I didn't think it was the end of the world necessarily, and you know, the one other time that we had been up to the Lab was a shocker in comparison. So, you know, if we're at least starting to build some mental strength going away to New Mexico United, then I'm fine with it. I'm expecting better this time for sure. Just simply because New Mexico United have been pretty poor in the recent history. I mean, the goals have absolutely dried up. They got smashed 3-0 by San Antonio before we visited them. Of course, the 0-0 against us. And then they drew 0-0 with Tacoma Defiance, which I don't really know what the excuse for that is other than, I mean, being on the road. But come on, guys. They should be beating Tacoma Defiance. So goal scoring woes continue for New Mexico United. Yeah, it's funny because with Tacoma Defiance, they actually created quite a bit of chances. They're just not getting on the end of it. And, you know, I think we've highlighted before that the personnel is not quite good enough. Devin Sandoval doesn't even really last the whole game. I think he comes off, you know, in like the 65th minute or something like that. So Brian Brown and Armando Moreno are going to need to do a little bit more for them. But yeah, the only thing that I'm a little bit worried about, which sounds kind of funny, is we've been so good with these like 3-day breaks that I wonder if having this actual week off would like mess with our momentum. Because we've seen in the past that, you know, when we think that a lot of rest will do us well, we come out like flat as hell.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm a little bit concerned in that regard, which doesn't make sense on its face. But, you know, I'm happy the guys are going to get a week off now, but we'll see if that impacts kind of our match rhythm because we're in just fine fettle right now.
Yeah, I think that's the only concern headed into this one, oddly enough, because normally I would say we would be pretty worried about a game in Albuquerque. And it's not to say that it couldn't go sideways, you know, just as a matter of a fact. Like there's certainly a lot of factors in this one. And on a derby day, like, you know that New Mexico is going to be up for it, especially now that they're sitting outside of the playoff places. They don't need any extra motivation to get 3 points. Like they'll definitely be chasing it. It'll be interesting to see how they line up. But as you said, like when you get in this rhythm of playing every 3 days, and the squad had, I think, responded really well to the rotation that Mark had set out. The plan seemed really good. And the teams were obviously getting the job done. So it does seem a little bit weird. It's almost like when you're playing really well in a game and you talk about like, you know, like they almost don't want halftime to come because they're in like the momentum is just like so positive and everything is going so well. You almost don't want the break. And so right. I think it does make sense. Like what you said about not necessarily wanting a week off. Cause I think right now these guys are just chomping at the bit to get back out there. And everybody's contributing really well. The upside is obviously, you know, Brian Rebillon, becoming available again after the suspension. And then, you know, if there are any kind of like lingering fitness issues or knocks or anything like that, we can get guys healthy, before this match. But yeah, I think overall, like coming into this one, it's definitely the least concerned I've been about, about a derby match. And it's not to say it couldn't go wrong, but, with New Mexico struggling to score, we're hitting a pretty good run of goal scoring form. It just seems like, probably the best possible time to play New Mexico.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, there's always that uncertainty about going to their house. But yeah, I'm feeling good about it. For the first time in a while, I think I usually dread these matches, but just how clinical and just ruthless we've been over these past couple games, I'm feeling it.
As you said, like the goals drying up for New Mexico United, I think a lot of United fans were probably pointing to the absence of Amando Moreno as having a really big impact. Him spending time on international duty at the Gold Cup with El Salvador. So he's been back now a couple of games and not really the big impact that everybody was expecting. Do you expect that he's just still trying to find his feet in this United side again, having spent so much time out of it?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not going to pretend that I've been watching a whole lot of New Mexico United. Life is short, and I'm not going to do that. But it seems, by the stats that he had a pretty good time out against Tacoma Defiance, but he's never been like a huge volume goal scorer anyway. I mean, he certainly gets on the score sheet with goals and assists, but I think he'd rather be connecting with someone else. And if Devin Sandoval is not providing that option, then his performances can look a little bit flat as well.
Sure.
I think Brian Brown should be the one trying to put the ball in the back of the net a lot more. This is the internet breaker after all. Yeah. I think United fans would be fair to expect a little bit more from him as that kind of marquee signing, over the off season. So yeah, I'm sure Moreno is just trying to get back into the groove. And I think, I don't know. I also want to see how he's going to be incorporated into what looks to be the standard now for Troy Lesesne with this 3-back. And how he'll be used with that, because I don't know. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, he'll have had some minutes back with the club now, and so I expect that he should come out, ready to play against us.
Do you find it at all interesting that it seems like Lesesne persists with a pretty consistent, like back, I guess, however you want to slice it, like his midfield and defense, like the personnel don't change all that much, despite the fact that they haven't had a whole lot of success this season. He's persisted with a pretty consistent 11. Does that strike you at all as odd? Because I definitely get, like, it just seems like sometimes managers, when they're going through a tough patch, will just shake things up, like just to shake people out of it. He hasn't really done that. Like, he's started pretty much like the same folks with a couple of changes here and there. Sometimes we see Rivas instead of Guzman in midfield, but I mean, he's really kind of stuck to the same personnel.
Yeah, you'll always see Sandoval leading the line. You'll always see Kalen Redden in the heart of defense. You'll always see Daniel Bruce as one of the wingbacks, along with Josh Suggs, the captain, of course. So yeah, I mean, Yearwood in defense. You have a point there. He doesn't really rotate all that much, and I think maybe that might be part of the problem, is these players know that their places are more or less secured, and there's not a whole lot of competition for places, it would seem, in that New Mexico United side. But looking at the roster, the depth isn't great. So I kind of don't blame Troy Lesesne in that way, because that his starting 11 is the best 11. The bench is not what it was, because the players that are in this starting 11 were on the bench when they had Santi Boad and players like that.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think the players are probably a bit too comfortable. But at the same time, I kind of don't blame the manager, because those probably are the best players he has.
Well, going into this one, Locomotive obviously in the good form, New Mexico struggling to score, but Locomotive still have not won in Albuquerque. So what are your thoughts ahead of this one? Do you think we see, because with the upcoming schedule, it does get a lot kinder to Locomotive in terms of the amount of games. We go back to once a week instead of twice. And so it's New Mexico, and then the following Saturday is RGV. The following Saturday is San Antonio. Do you think we just see a full bore, full strength 11? Like Mark goes out there, just selects the team that he wants to win, kind of without, I guess, do you think he takes what's going on in New Mexico into account, or do you think he just goes for the throat here?
Yeah, I think because we've got more time in the week, I think training will be very instructive to Mark and his staff. I think it'll be really influential in who gets the nod, because if this was still part of our like two games a week schedule, I would say the guys that came on against Austin Bolt are going to start. But with this one, since we have a little bit more time and Mark gets to kind of see what the players are doing in training, I think it'll be a little less predictable. I will say I think this is a game that Diego Luna would really benefit from starting. We need someone unpredictable that can kind of break through, that five back as it is when New Mexico United are not in possession. I think it can get a lot, very static in midfield against them. So
sure.
I would like to see him start. And there's no reason why he shouldn't, assuming nothing happens this week to take him out of contention. But other than that, I couldn't tell you who might be starting. I think we'll just have to see how they train.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Brahim is probably in contention for this one.
Back from suspension, so yes.
Yeah, the only conversation that might be had is Brahim has run into a rash of he's had 2 sendings off now in the last month. So he probably might need to be calmed a little bit before the derby, not get caught up in anything, any extracurriculars, because we've seen a handful of sendings off in this matchup. Not necessarily always due to foul play, but
right.
But we have seen red cards, and indeed in the last matchup we saw one for New Mexico United. So not getting caught up in the in the derby atmosphere is a big part of it. But going into this one with Locomotive in such fine form, we do need to make some predictions about how it's going to turn out. And what are you thinking for this derby?
Given the fact that we will have some time off that we haven't enjoyed in quite a while, in a month, I don't know. I feel like we might suffer a little bit from that. I think the match rhythm is so high right now, and any change to the schedule is actually going to mess with that, as I said previously. So I'm thinking 1-1. I think it'll be a draw, which, again, away to New Mexico United, not the end of the world, and I'm happy to be wrong if we end up beating them. I've been under-predicting our goals lately, so
yeah.
Which is new, obviously. So yeah, I'll go 1-1 draw. Maybe it's a little bit safe.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I think it accounts for the fact that maybe we come off of, have a little bit of a hangover, having not played that midweek.
Right.
And then them obviously coming into this one quite fresh, but also with that additional motivation of they haven't performed really well in quite a while. And I think their last win was actually against Charleston Battery.
At home, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually did watch that one.
So yeah, a little bit of a strange run for New Mexico. And ultimately for this one, so you go for the 1-1, who do you have scoring for Locomotive?
Oh, right. Let's see. That's tough. Let me think on that. Let me go Lucho, because I think he missed out on the party last night.
Yeah.
But so he'll be desperate to score. So I'll go Lucho.
He actually had a really good chance too. I thought he did really well to bring down a ball over the top. I can't remember who made the pass. It was actually a brilliant pass as well. But he brings a ball down and Panico makes a really smart save, like coming out and closing him down. I'm going to say for this one, for New Mexico, I'm going to say I will also say that it's going to be a cagey affair, but I will say that Locomotive get their first win in Albuquerque 1-0. And I'm thinking so I've been predicting him to score for a while now, and I think he'll do it. I think it'll be Sebastian, only because I think he played one of the matches where we kind of were like, like Seb, he's still trying to like get back into it, was the 0-0 in Albuquerque. He looked like a little bit off it and stuff. He's just looked so good recently that I think he's deserved to be on the end of a couple. And last night he had a couple of block shots. So I'm going to say that one of them finds its way. Like he gets it kind of on the edge of the area and finishes off the 1-0. And the defense holds strong, and that's what I'm thinking for this one.
I like it.
So we had, in addition to the listener questions that we already saw, we had a couple of listener questions come through as we get ready to close this episode out. And the first, we've talked a little bit about Diego Luna tonight, and the first one of the kind of more general listener questions came from Patrick Gabaldon as well, at Gabaldon Art. When is it reasonable to start thinking about Luna moving on? End of the season? End of his second season? This is a question that's probably bouncing around Locomotive fans' heads right now, in that we have this 17-year-old, but I guess the question mark is for how long? So how long do you see Diego hanging around Locomotive?
Well, I think from what I've been able to gather from context clues as well, I think his deal runs until the end of November. I think it was a 1-year deal. I don't remember there being any talk of a multi-year deal. But right now he's providing goal contributions at 1 every 2 games. So while he's young, we know that there's been a lot of interest in him even before he signed for Locomotive. And now that he's shown he can play with grown men in a professional league, I think the interest will only increase. I wouldn't be shocked if he moved on at the end of this season.
Yeah.
But I also think it depends on what other clubs can offer him, because, I mean, you don't really see a lot of 17-year-olds getting as many minutes as he does. And so that's kind of advantage Locomotive in that way, advantage Mark Lowry. So, but I think the talent is something that people are going to be chasing quite a bit. Because, I mean, again, a goal involvement every other game is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard, I think, to hold on to him.
Yeah, I think the contract situation matters quite a lot. If he would fetch Locomotive a fee, then I think he's more likely to stay. I think teams in U.S. soccer like to try to run the contracts out rather than spend money in these situations. But the demand could be high enough. Like he's just that good. It'll be really interesting to see just what the interest is like at the end of the season. I think, obviously Locomotive would prefer that he sticks around for a little bit, but I think the arrangement is one, especially in the case of someone who's 17, like we know that this isn't the destination. But that's okay. Like, because ultimately it's about giving a platform for a player like this. But on the other hand, like, hopefully it also has an economic impact for Locomotive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it just if we could fetch a fee, that could be game changing, because obviously that's not something that USL clubs generate all that often in terms of actually getting transfer fees for players. So yeah, I think it all depends on the contract, and like we don't know the ins and outs. I think if it ends this season, then he's probably going to get a pretty big offer from somewhere. I think if it ends next season, then I mean there's still potential that someone comes in with a bid for him. It just matters like what Mountain Star's price tag is.
That's kind of a fun one. Gobbledon didn't ask this, but what do you think a price tag for him would be?
I mean,
I guess it depends on the buyer, right?
Yeah, current market. Gosh, what did I'm trying to think of some of the fees paid for some of these youngsters coming out of MLS going to Europe, because I feel like that's kind of the comparable sales. I mean, there's been a handful, like a few million thrown around for some of these guys, like.
Right. Who was the lad that went to Paso Ferreira from San Antonio? Christian Pirano. What did he go for?
Was that a free?
That might have been a free. Yeah, never mind.
I think they might have ran down his contract.
I'm biased, but he's worth 50 million euros. Thank you.
I don't think it's crazy to think that he's worth, and this is said without any, there's no like sarcasm here or anything. I think he's worth at least like 10 to 12 million right now in the current market.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, I think so. Cause you're paying for potential so often when you're paying for like Alphonso Davies fetched 12. And that was like 3 years ago out of Vancouver Whitecaps.
Right. Yeah, Transfermarkt doesn't have like an estimated value for Diego, so
next year they will. Next year they definitely will.
Yeah.
No,
It'll be interesting.
I would say that he would probably realistically fetch like at most like $1 million or $2 million, like
right
at the very top end. At like currently, I think in terms of actual value, like it's hard to quantify a 17-year-old's value because you don't know where their ceiling is.
Right.
So
and also that value depends on what we value him at, like how important, what would it take for us to part with him? Yeah.
Right. But it all could be moot because who knows? He may have a clause in there that, means that either a certain amount or, hey, if a certain like caliber of team comes in and offers a contract, then it's just an automatic out. Like,
right. And we know Mark's not going to stand in anybody's way. So,
nope.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting question there from Pat. And then at Jay Konecki also said, I know this is looking pretty far into the future, but how do y'all think we stack up against Phoenix? I think we can force them into our style of play, but I'm also extremely biased. I've got bad news, Jake, so are we.
Yeah, if you're looking for objectivity here, we're not the ones.
But what do you think about a potential? I mean, obviously, it would be a rematch of the Western Conference Final from last year, but that is looking at the way things are shaping up now. That's probably the soonest that we would face them again. And in this season, what do you think about our prospects again in a prospective matchup against Phoenix?
I mean, while we are doing very, very well and we're at the peak of our powers right now, I don't ever want to underestimate Phoenix because they're still, probably the best side in USL on balance. This season's not much different from any other season they've had. I mean, leading the league in goal difference with, what is it, like something ridiculous in the 25 goals. So 38 goals scored, 13 allowed. That's just 3 more than we've allowed.
Yeah.
Now, I do think the way that they limit goals is much different than ours. I think ours is our way of defending is very much because we're good defenders, whereas I think with them they're so dominant in the attacking third that they just don't get scored on a lot because they're not in that area of the pitch. But I don't actually rate their defense that highly. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Could we impose our style of play? You know, in the times that we've played against them, kind of.
Yeah.
But they're just so good. Like, they have such good players in those attacking areas that it just, I don't know. I think we're certainly better than the last time we played them. So we'll just have to see if we do meet them in the playoffs. But Phoenix is still a force to be reckoned with, and I don't think that we should be forgetting that anytime soon.
No, I think we forget that at our own peril, unfortunately. The one thing I will say about Phoenix is, like you said, the way that they control games, and I don't mean to be like overly patronizing again, but Phoenix so often come into games and teams have acquiesced to their style. In my opinion, like, I think teams come in thinking, okay, we just need to like batten down the hatches and hope for the best. Like, not dissimilar to the way that teams set up. Well, I mean, honestly, not that dissimilar, but to the way that Bold set up against us. Like, they really let us play the way that we wanted. And I think there are games that Phoenix comes into where it's just like not in the face. Like, that's the team, the opposing team's approach is just like, don't beat us 5-0. And when a team plays without fear, I think it just puts them under more pressure. And I think, honestly, like, this game against Las Vegas is a decent example of, they get the draw. The equalizer from Lights, like, was a screamer. I don't know if you saw that finish, but he hits that football about it. He hits that football about as hard as a football could possibly be hit without just disintegrating. But the thing about Lights is that they don't play with any fear just because, like, I mean, what do they have to lose? Like, they're terrible. But in the end, they end up creating a bunch against Phoenix. And I would say that this should be more so the worry for Phoenix is Vegas haven't really been able to assert themselves much, like, all season, and they haven't really scored that many goals. But they created 19 shots against Phoenix. And that's not a controlling performance. That's not like that's not the mark of a team that's in control of the game. Right. Result aside, like, normally the way that you see these sorts of results pan out is like, you know, Phoenix 25 shots, 2 goals, and Vegas 2 shots on target, 2 goals, like that sort of feeling. Right. This is, I mean, they created a bunch, and both teams complete about the same number of passes. Like, there was nothing about this to suggest that Phoenix, like, dominated the game or were unlucky. Like, they went to Vegas and got the result that they earned. And that, if I'm a Phoenix fan, is more troubling to me because they weren't able to assert themselves over a team that has really been, like, kind of a punchline for the rest of the league. Oakland roots aside. So.
Oh boy, that pitch though. No, I mean, very well said. Very well said. Phoenix, though, I mean, you can catch them because they lost to San Diego Loyal, who are also not good. And I think also their fans will disagree vehemently, but I think the Pacific Division is weak as hell this season. Yeah. Let me say this season in comparison to the Mountain Division, but that's just I'm as biased as you, Jake. Yeah.
No, and it's an interesting one. As we said, Phoenix comfortably top of the Pacific as well. 11 points clear of Orange County. They've really been, like, you know, they've set the pace there as you'd expect, but the rest of the division just hasn't really provided much of a contest for them. So it'll be really interesting come playoff time when Phoenix do face off against some more mountain teams. And obviously they had a pretty handy beating of RGV at home, but I think we know too RGV to be a much different prospect on the road than they are out in Edinburgh.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
So a lot of dynamics there. Speaking of RGV in San Antonio at the time of this recording tied 1-1. I think they're playing right now.
Well, whatever. We're winning Copa Tejas anyway, so.
Yeah.
A lot of Texas football this weekend.
Lots.
Dallas smashed Austin. We smashed Bold. San Antonio RGV going on right now. So
Austin, the city of Austin as a whole, just mudded this weekend.
L's. Just yeah.
Well, yeah, I think Mikka, that brings us about to the end of the episode. We've got a little bit of a breather here. We can actually record like in a normal schedule, actually talk about every game rather than just like catching games here and there.
Right.
Actually, like
brutal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I had people at the game telling me like, so when's the next episode? We're waiting. I'm like, shit.
Bruh.
I appreciate that, though. I told them, I was like, no, let us know that because we need the motivation sometimes. For
real. Sometimes, I mean, day jobs get you down, and it just it can get tough. It's a slog out there. I know you guys know. So luckily now we've got a little bit of breathing room. We can release some episodes more regularly. And yeah, it's just, gosh, it's definitely not hard to record after a result like last night, and we're pleased to be able to talk about Locomotive winning. And here's hoping a Derby win follows this weekend. I'm sure there will be Loco Spaces this weekend as well. So keep an eye out from Duke Keith for that, as well as Joe Rodriguez, and then ourselves. We'll probably be able to join in. And then, as far as this podcast, if it's your first time finding us, we're at Seriously Loco on all socials, and then you can find us on any podcast platform. Just search Seriously Loco Soccer Pod or Seriously Loco. I'm sure you can find us. And give us a listen, subscribe, all that stuff. And we will catch you guys next week after what is hopefully a sound beating of New Mexico United. And until then, stay loco.